I wanted to thank you for joining me on this episode of Doing Insurance Right. My name is Scott Jenkins, your host. I'm a local farmers insurance agency owner here in Phoenix, Arizona. And today I wanted to talk to you about pet insurance and why a lot of people think it was maybe a ripoff or well overpriced or something they may not need. I just kind of get into that a little bit. So, when you have a dog or, cat or whatever it may be, obviously we're thinking, okay, great, I got to pay for another insurance. Maybe it's something I don't use, but it's one of those in case thing happens. I mean, most of the time, let's be honest here, it's you pay for health insurance. You may be healthy, but you paid for health insurance premiums all year. And the reason why you paid for those health insurance premiums is just because if I go to the hospital and it's going to cost $100,000 or $200,000, I don't have the money to pay $100,000 or $200,000, but I pay those premiums just in case, right? So, and then one of the other things that I just read in a recent survey is that less than 6% of the dog owners out there choose to purchase coverage. So, that's not very many of those that purchase coverage. And then a lot of people have read, well, the Consumer Reports did a price that says it's not worth the price of pet insurance, that you rarely get all of your money back for premiums. But that's kind of the wrong way to think about insurance. So when we look at health insurance, is that how we consider it? Do we consider it it's only if we only buy health insurance if we get back the amount of premiums? So let me get you this kind of idea here. The two questions you should really ask. The first question is, how much can I spend on my pet? So if I got a really expensive bill of like $5,000, would I be able to pay that myself or not? That's kind of the first question you have to ask yourself. So if you can afford that $5,000 and you would pay $5,000 for that family member, that fur family member, then maybe you can be self-insured and maybe you don't need to do that. But if you don't have that kind of money, then obviously pet insurance is going to be big for you. The second one is going to be, how much am I willing to spend to save my pet's life? And don't think about necessarily the constraints of your budget, but think about what it's worth. Would it be worth $2,500? Would it be worth $5,000? Would it be worth $10,000, $20,000? Let's say if your dog had cancer or something to that effect. We're generally going to spend as much money as we possibly can to save a human life. The question is are we going to do to save our pet's life? How much would that be willing to be? So most of us don't have probably $20,000 in savings to spend on that. So if that $20,000 bill came, the question is are we going to have to put the dog down because we couldn't afford that? So to take this as an example, I had somebody kind of explain this to me. So they have homeowners insurance. They pay $700 a year and they haven't had a homeowner's claim in 20 years. Basically, have never used it. They pay $700 a year. But let me ask you this. Would you dare not carry insurance on your home? So if there was a total loss of your house, you would be at what? You would have nothing, right? But 20 years at $700 is $14,000 that you paid. So let me ask you this. If you did have that total loss, that $14,000 that you paid for your $300,000+ house at $700 a year is going to seem like a real bargain, right? So that's kind of a lot of ways to think out of it like that. So a lot of times pet insurance is either going to cover, depending on the plan you choose, is going to cover either 80% or 90% of the bill. So just to kind of give you an idea of how the pet insurance, let's say you got a $3,000 bill. Okay. You had a $500 deductible, which means now there's a $2,500 expense. If it was just 70%, you would get $1,750 back. So let me ask you this. If you were spending $30 to $40 a month, which most people aren't going to miss that $30 to $40 a month, which is going to mean more to you, that $30 or $40 or that $1,750 coming back to you? So that's kind of a good way to think of it. So, a lot of the companies have come out and said they spend 70% of their premium to claims. People might think that's frustrating because they're only spending 70% of the premium dollars, but they also have to pay employees. They have to have buildings, things of that nature. So when you really look at 70%, it's pretty high is what they're paying out. So, and the vet bills tend to not all hit at once, but if they do, a stack of $400 bills, let's say you had 3 or 4 or 5 of those, could put somebody, completely financial ruin, where maybe $30, $40, $50 a month for your pet insurance is not really, you're not going to be affected that much. So it's something to really take a look at as well. Now remember, because pet insurance is basically you prepay and you get reimbursed. So something else to keep in mind. So if you have a credit card that you use that also gets you cash back, points, miles, you also can charge that on the card and then pay that card off with that money that you're going to get reimbursed. So you can also pick up money that way as well. So, on that one there, I mean, most of the time when we have any insurance policy that we buy, the main hope is that we don't use it, right? That means if we had to use it, that means something probably bad happened. Nobody wants that to actually happen. The insurance companies don't want it to happen. Nobody does. But in this particular, the reason we buy it is in case something happens. We buy car insurance not only because, it didn't used to be federally and state mandated, now it is. But before then, we bought it. Why? In case we got into a car accident. We buy homeowners insurance or renters insurance. If we rent the dwelling where we're at, we buy that. Why? In case something happens. We buy life insurance in case the worst happens. We buy health insurance in case we get sick. That's the same thing that pet insurance is, except it's for our pet. So remember, we've got an English bulldog. Trust me, the bills can get outrageous. She's not a $50 a month dog, just due to the fact that they're a little bit known breed to have issues. But sending that bill in and getting a check back for something I was going to have to pay full boat for anyway has been a blessing. So I wanted to thank you for joining me on this episode of Doing Insurance Right. As always, if you could rate, review, or subscribe to whatever platform you're listening on, whether it be Google Play or Spotify or Apple, I would greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.